like to introduce JJ Virgin. She's a certified nutrition specialist, board certified in holistic nutrition, and certified exercise physiologist. JJ is the author of 4 New York Times bestsellers. One of them is The Virgin Diet. Hi, JJ. I enjoyed reading your book.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful to have you today. I'm just going to dive into the questions.
Make them easy. Come on.
Okay, so let's start with, what is food intolerance?
Oh my gosh. So this, when I first stumbled upon this, my clients really showed it to me. I was using a food sensitivity test, and I was teaching doctors how to use this in their practices. And we were doing this test, and it showed delayed food reactions that could be anything from an hour to a day or two that would cause things like gas and bloating, joint pain, headaches, fatigue, etc. And what was crazy is we were doing this testing, figuring out which foods showed up, pulling those foods out, and people would, like, all those symptoms that they came in with would go away, but they also started to lose weight. The challenge was it took 3 weeks for the test results to come back. So I started looking at all the tests, and I had the opportunity to look at hundreds of these tests. And I went, the same foods keep showing up. What if during the little time period between when we tested and when they come back, we just take those foods out anyway? And so I started playing around with pulling out 6 foods, not 7 yet, 6 foods. And when they came back 3 weeks later, first of all, in the first week, people will go, oh my gosh, my joint pain's gone, my skin's cleared up, I can think better, I've got better energy, like all this stuff. And then they come back 3 weeks later to get their test results, and they'd lost weight. And it was interesting because most of the time, even if their test results showed that these foods didn't, they didn't react to one of them, what I did instead was had them go back after they'd taken 3 weeks to let their gut heal. And it's not going to heal all the way, but we can do a lot of speed healing in 3 weeks and kind of reset to a new normal where they really could feel like what feeling good feels like, what is steady, sustained energy and clear skin and no gas and bloating. What's it feel like? And then we go back and challenge each of these foods to see how they felt. And that's really, truly when you can see if you're intolerant to something, is if you try a food and you go, wow, I eat this food and I'm tired, or I eat this food and my weight went up 3 pounds overnight. Come on, you didn't eat 3 pounds worth of food, right? So this is what food intolerance is it's generally because of your gut being more permeable than it should be. And that's usually because of stress, or gluten, or fructose, or pain medications, and also just messing up your gut from eating, sugar and highly processed foods, GMO foods, and taking medications. So you damage your gut. You're eating the same types of foods all the time, generally gluten, dairy, eggs, corn, soy, peanuts, and you've got sugar and artificial sweeteners in your diet. Those are getting out into circulation where they shouldn't be. Your body's launching an immune attack. And because you're eating the same things all the time, it can't get rid of them fast enough, and they start to accumulate and create all those symptoms. And literally what's awesome is, you can clear out all those immune complexes within a couple of weeks, but you can get rid of symptoms fairly quickly. A couple of days, you start to feel remarkably better. But the challenge is people don't normally know they have these things, because a lot of these symptoms, like gas and bloating, you go to the store and look in the pharmacy at the store how many medications there are for gas and bloating. Like, it's insanity, and heartburn, and joint pain. So many of the things that we're taught to are just normal, like joint pain and headaches and gas and bloating, could be a food intolerance, but you don't connect the dots from that pizza you ate the night before and the migraine you have the next day, because it wasn't like you opened the bag of peanuts and you broke out in hives and your throat closed up. It's a little bit delayed and it's low grade. So you just think it's kind of a normal thing, but it's not normal.
And how common is the food intolerance, and why is this?
Well, when I first started messing around with this, food allergies, people know if they have those, and they're not common. Food intolerance is very common, and I think it's even in the last 2 years has gotten even more common. And that is because it really is a function of your small intestinal permeability. So your small intestine should be only semi-permeable, letting things go through that should go through and not letting big food particles go out. And the challenge is, if you are not taking the time to eat correctly, meaning sitting down, chewing your food, if you don't have the enzymes on board to break down proteins, which are what are triggering this response, if you're doing, poor eating hygiene, like lots of fluids when you eat, rushed eating, eating on the run, standing up and eating, eating too fast, not chewing, and you've got lower stomach acid, and you're eating the same types of things all the time, and you've made your gut more permeable because of gluten, which can trigger the release of something called zonulin that makes your gut more permeable, fructose that makes your gut more permeable, pain medications like NSAIDs, Advil, that kind of thing. And then, did I say fructose? I think I did. And stress, that's the biggest one of all. Like, who didn't get stressed over the last 2 years? It's kind of like, who doesn't have one of these? And then you couple it with the foods that are most likely to create these food intolerances that you're most likely to react to, which are the most common foods in all the processed foods. So gluten, dairy, eggs, corn, soy, peanuts, and then of course, sugar and artificial sweeteners because of what they do to your gut. So if you look at that, it's kind of impossible not to have these if you're not actively healing your gut, managing stress and getting your gut super dialed, and not eating the same processed foods day after day after day.
I see. That's very interesting. So how would you know if you have food intolerance? What people should watch for?
So you could test, and you could do a food sensitivity test, and it's called an IgG4 test, where you look at, like, if your body's reacting to different foods, you'll get a printout. You can also run a test that will look at the levels of something called zonulin, which can predict gut permeability. But personally, I think the very best thing you can do is go through a process of eliminating these foods, healing your gut, and re-challenging, because that's really the best test of all. If a test says that you do fine on dairy, but you eat dairy and you get phlegmy and your face breaks out, who cares what the test said? Your body is your best indicator. So I think that what we should do is redefine diets. Like, I think that we use diets therapeutically short-term to learn things about ourselves so that we can pull that information into our daily diet, into our everyday personalized eating plan. And so what I have people do, and this is in the Virgin diet, is you first track your symptoms and score them. And you're looking at, again, gas and bloating, joint pain, headaches, skin problems, energy, focus, irritability, mood, inability to lose weight, weight around the waist, constipation. And so you go through and you track all of that. Then you go through at least 3 weeks. I like to do it a little bit longer, but 3 weeks is sort of the least amount of time. And, the bottom line is anyone can do anything for 3 weeks. So for 3 weeks, what you do is you swap. And I say swap rather than pull out, because nature hates a vacuum. So if I just say pull out these things, I found people can put even worse things in their place. So you swap. And so you swap out the gluten, the dairy, the eggs, the corn, the soy, the peanuts, and you don't add any sugars, and you definitely get out artificial sweeteners. And you swap them for gut healing foods. So I like to do like a loaded smoothie as my breakfast instead of a muffin and a latte, and then usually a salad with some kind of clean protein and healthy fat for lunch, and then a dinner of another clean protein, say like wild salmon and some broccoli sauteed in olive oil, and maybe a little bit of wild rice. So simple, clean foods that you swap for. You do that for 3 weeks. I throw in what I call a limb of fasting cycles, where we do some days of 2 meals and intermittent fasting to speed heal the gut. And then after you've done that, you go back and one by one, you check in and connect the dots. You eat one of the foods for 1 to 3 days. You stop when you start to feel any kind of reaction. It could be anything from your weight going up 3 to 4 pounds overnight, to just being more tired, to your skin breaking out, to getting mucousy, dark circles under your eyes. The minute you see that, you stop. If you don't see that, it's fine. You then give yourself 2 days to clean out and you go to the next food, so that you're able to connect the dots between what you're eating and how you feel, to figure out if this food's helping you or hurting you, so that you can decide whether it should be incorporated into your diet a little bit, not at all, fine to incorporate in, so how it will fit, so that you really don't have to think about, like, weight loss. It becomes effortless and automatic. because I see weight as just an issue of your body is not working well, right? Like you don't lose weight to get healthy. You have to get healthy and heal your metabolism to lose weight. So when you're doing these things and lowering inflammation and feeling better, it's going to help you have weight loss as a side effect.
Yeah, I like how you laid things in the book. It was very straightforward and easy to follow. So what are the usual suspects?
So usual suspects, and again, this is what I found in testing. You know, we know that 1 in 133 people, that's the stats right now. I'm betting it's more like 1 in 100 people, like 1% of the population has real celiac disease. 40% have some kind of immunological gluten intolerance. But what I find is most people feel way better pulling out gluten. I'm not sure if that's the glyphosate they're spraying on the gluten, you know, what it is, but it doesn't really matter because they come together in most cases now. So gluten is definitely one of them. One of the things we know with gluten is it can make the gut more permeable too. And then the next one is dairy. And, you know, one of the things with dairy and eggs, because those are the two next, is I always say you are what you ate. So the challenge is it the dairy and eggs, or is it what they're feeding the chickens or feeding the cows and the pigs? But dairy and eggs are the next ones. And then after that, corn, soy, peanuts, and then sugar and artificial sweeteners. And on each of those, what I have you do for 3 weeks is swap them out for similar types of things that are not high food intolerance, high FI, that are better for healing you. And what's cool now versus when I wrote this book 10 years ago, and when I started doing this 15 to 20 years ago, is that there's so many healthy swaps. Back when I started and I say, all right, we're going to get rid of that whole wheat tortilla, have a lettuce leaf, you know, it was like, now it's like, all right, there's siete, there's cassava tortillas, almond flour tortillas, rice tortillas. There's so many options out there for tortillas and pasta and cream cheese. And so it makes it a lot easier to follow this and to swap these things out. The big caveat though is just beware that you're not swapping it out for a junk food. Like I call it the healthy junk food version of things, you know, where it's like, it just because it says gluten-free does not mean it's healthy, or right. I mean, there's just some
True.
absolute garbage out there.
Yeah, that's so true. Sometimes they're loaded with sugar and other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So can you fix it?
Well, yes, that's what's exciting. Now, I always tell people, because I have people come up to me and they're like, I've been on your diet for years. I go, but it's 3 weeks. And then we re-challenge. It's not a forever diet. It's actually a discovery process. When you really do this correctly, it's a discovery process that you go through to connect the dots. First of all, you go through it to detoxify and heal, and then to connect the dots to figure out which foods work for you and which foods don't. Now, you may find, like I know, I feel way better when I don't eat gluten and dairy. They do not do well for me. I'm also gluten intolerant, so it's not an option for me. That's not when I can go, I get a little bit. No, I can't. But dairy, I get mucousy, I break out, my weight will go up 3 to 4 pounds. It's like, come on, that's crazy. So you'll find the foods that you absolutely need to keep out 100%. Now, does that mean forever? Depends. If it's immune mediated, yes. If it's something genetic, but if it's more that your gut, or I'm sorry, if it's genetic, not immune, if it's a genetic thing like gluten intolerance or lactose intolerance, yeah, you're gonna need to keep it out. But if it's something that's immune mediated because of your gut permeability, you may find that as you heal your gut, you'll be able to tolerate that food again. Case in point, when I went through this, I had a severe reaction to eggs. On the food sensitivity test, I was a 5+. And I healed my gut. It took 6 months, but I can rotate pastured eggs into my diet now just fine. I wouldn't go back to eating them every day because they're a high FI food. I don't think anybody should, but I can totally rotate them in when I'm not doing one of my loaded virgin diet smoothies. So you can heal, but there's just certain foods that may never be a good idea for you, but you'll know when you go through the process. You know, we're all different. So it's really about connecting the dots to go through the process to see which foods work for you and which foods don't, so that you can design a diet that's going to work for you for the long haul.
I have a question. So on my sensitivity test, it shows that I'm sensitive to or intolerant to eggs,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't feel it when I eat the eggs. So do you think, which one is more accurate? Should I listen to my body or should I more listen to the test?
So here's a couple things about food sensitivity tests. Number one, there's a couple different ones, and I like the IgG4 because the IgG1 can show what's in process, not what's developed. So you want to look at it's the more of an immediate, but it's not an IgGe or an IgE. So you want to look at IgG4, but also realize that there's also levels of sensitivity. So if you like a 1, you won't feel it and you could rotate it in, but you want to be careful because you could develop it up to a 5, right? So like, I don't know, were you a 5 on eggs or were you a low? Like
I was medium. I was
yeah, so you may find with medium, and especially if you're taking enzymes, you can rotate them in. It's really the highs. The other thing when a food sensitivity test is if you have a lot of reactions on a food sensitivity test, that is just showing how permeable your gut is. And the answer isn't take all these foods out. Oh my gosh, the answer is heal your gut. Now, if I had a medium reaction to eggs, I would personally pull it out and really focus on gut healing. And I'd keep them out for at least 3 months because you have to really give your body time to heal. 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks is sort of the minimum time to get rid of those immune complexes, but I'd give them a little bit more time. And if you hadn't taken eggs out altogether and you say you feel fine eating them, you actually don't know till you take it out for at least 3 weeks and re-challenge.
Oh, it makes sense.
You have to get the antibodies down because right now your body's been developing antibodies to the antigens in the eggs. When you eat the egg, the antibodies are ready. They grab a hold of the antigens, make immune complexes. You want the antibodies to go away. You want to take that out. And what you'll find is if you do that, you give yourself 3 to 4 weeks, then you go back and eat the egg, you'll now unmask it. If it's not working for you, you will know. But if you've been eating it a little bit all along, it's still got those antibodies, it's gonna grab it right away and just have a low-grade symptom that you may not even be aware of. That you literally, once it's out, you'll go, oh my gosh, that thing isn't happening anymore. Like I had some things going on that I didn't even think about, just a little joint pain that like all of a sudden someone asks you about it, you go, oh, it's gone. I never connected the dots. So there may be things going on that you're not connecting the dots on.
Yeah, I should do that. So talking about
you should, no, not I should do that. I'm going to do that.
I'm going to do that. I love that.
Okay.
I'm going to do that. Talking about this, could you walk me through the Virgin diet? How does it work?
Well, so that first part I walked you through is you first assess, then you go through the 3 to 4 weeks. Now I like to start with at least 1 week, maybe 2, of kind of an immersive jumpstart detox where you are doing 2 loaded smoothies a day and 1 meal. The reason is it's just easier, right? And the smoothies can be very gut healing. So I'll use my protein powder and then I'll add in some extra collagen or gut healing powder. And then some avocado or freshly ground flaxseed meal or chia, that's real gut healing. And then a little bit of berries for the antioxidants to lower the inflammation. So I'll do a loaded smoothie that's got clean protein, healthy fats, fiber, and then that's going to help with good satiety and gut healing. So I'll do 1 to 2 smoothies a day and 1 meal a day. And I'll add in on the days that I'm doing 1 meal, 1 smoothie are shorter intermittent fasting days. And then after that, I'll move into 1 smoothie and 1 to 2 meals a day for another at least 2 weeks. So that's the first part of it where you are healing, you're detoxing and healing and really resetting to a new normal. So you go, okay, now how do I feel with my joint pain, my headaches, my fatigue, my gas and bloating, all of those symptoms? At that point, you're going to go one by one through the foods. The only one you're not going to do is sugar because there's a different process for that. But you'll go, all right, I'm going to test gluten. And you do it 1 time a day and you stop when you notice a symptom. So let's say that you're doing gluten and you have like, a whole wheat bread sandwich. And you next day notice that your weight went up 3 pounds. You stop. That's a symptom. Or all of a sudden after lunch, you get a migraine. You stop. That's a symptom. If you get no symptoms at the end of 3 days, you stop and you wash out for 2 days, and then you go to the next food. If you've got symptoms, you stop whenever you got symptoms and you give yourself 2 days of going back to the Virgin diet, and then you go to the next food. So we go one by one through the foods. with a 2-day kind of washout period so that we can really connect the dots between that specific food and how you feel. Very important. So you're connecting the dots, going, does this food, what's my level of response? If it's an extreme response, then I know 100% this has to stay out. If it's super mild at the end of day 3, could I rotate this in? What I really look at if I have a super mild at the end of day 3 is I'll go, if this happens to jump into my food, it's okay. It's not going to be a big deal, but I'm not going to search it out. Or maybe I feel fine. And this could be something I could rotate into my diet, like eggs, right? But I'd want to make sure that I'm eating the best version of them. Once you go through that, then you can create your personalized plan of which of these foods, like, is this 100%? Is this, if it sneaks in at a restaurant, I'm okay? Is this something I can rotate back into my diet? And then you might look at something like eggs. Let's say at the end of that, eggs hurt you. You give yourself another 3 months, and then you re-challenge again to see if you've healed your gut enough to do it. And you make sure that you've got the gut healing put into place. And the way I do gut healing is intermittent fasting cycles, because that helps take out the cellular trash. It's something called autophagy. And then I use a specific gut healing powder with extra glutamine. I'm actually changing mine right now to up my glutamine a little bit, but a glutamine and acetylglucosamine powder that has a lot of gut healing nutrients to help speed the healing of the gut. And then things like cold water fish, freshly ground flaxseed meal that are really gut healing as well.
And who should consider going on this diet?
Everybody. The people that I've worked with the most tend to be, women who've struggled with their weight, don't feel good and cannot figure out, they feel like they've been doing everything right. Like they're eating healthy, they're exercising, what the heck is going on? And they're just stuck. That was the audience that I was working with. So it's the audience I've tended to work in, but it's really good in the autoimmune world. I've had people with autoimmune diseases reverse them with this. It's great for kids with ADHD, ADD. So, it's kind of works in every single avenue. And you can even do it while you're pregnant, because I'd rather you be off these things than on them. You just want to make sure you keep your calories up. And then the one thing I didn't mention as you go through the process, at the end of the process, the thing you didn't re-challenge is sugar, because it's a very different process to figure out sugar impact. So I actually wrote an entirely different book about sugar impact after I wrote the Virgin Diet, because I got so many questions about sugar. I went, all right, we need to redefine how we look at sugar and how we get people to move from being a sugar burner to a fat burner and get rid of their sweet tooth.
I like how you mentioned the autoimmune disease and the ADHD. I have 2 questions regarding those. Can you give me examples of autoimmune diseases that were reversed? And how do you get children to go onto that diet, with them going to school, seeing other kids, eating at the cafeteria or going to birthdays?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a challenge. I'll tell you what we did, because I did it with my son. So I think of one gal, her name is escaping me right now, but late at night, she was Googling anti-inflammatory diet, and she came across my Virgin Diet and she went on it. And she was a gal who had psoriatic arthritis, and it was like ruining her life. Basically, she was a grandmother. She couldn't play with her grandkids because she was on these immune depleting meds, and so she would get sick, and then she couldn't go to work because she got sick. So it just was zapping her life. She couldn't work, she couldn't see her grandkids. She went on this, she got off her medications. It's like complete turnaround, like crazy. And so I've seen it work well with psoriatic arthritis, with rheumatoid arthritis, actually not autoimmune, but osteoarthritis. I've seen it work well with Hashimoto's and also gastritis. So it's just one of those things that I think should be frontline, first-line therapy for autoimmune disease, because so much autoimmune disease is especially gluten and corn reactions and dairy. And then as far as kids go, I'm not going to say this one is easy, because it's a challenge. And especially when you have kids who hate being different and singled out. And I had a son that I needed to make sure stayed off of gluten and dairy and all that. And I actually had to like get a get a prescription written into the school. But I think the more, and they gave him special meals at the cafeteria because he wanted. I was like, you want to eat at the cafeteria? I'll send lunches, you know. But I think the big important thing with kids is to show them role models that they relate to and explain why they're doing something, teach them, and then involve them. Because we all support what we create, but it's really fun. Like I think one of the biggest tragedies is kids not knowing how to cook. Like when the pandemic hit and all of a sudden you realize, wow, there's a whole group of people that don't know how to cook. Uh-oh, you know, now what? You know, this is a problem. So I think the more, even at a young age, I mean, don't give them sharp knives, but, you know, teach your kids how to cook and how to be involved in this stuff. And what's also great is there's so many easy swaps now that you can do. So it makes it a lot easier. It's a little tough at, like, if it's your own birthday party, there's plenty of amazing gluten-free vegan cakes out there because we always serve them. But at another birthday party, it can be a little challenging. So if you can bring something special for them and explain, have them understand, the child needs to understand what's going on. And, you know, kids are smart. They want to do the right thing and they want to feel good and be a superhero, right?
They are,
So.
yeah. I look up to them. Is there like a special, you want to share a success story? I know you shared one with us, but do you have something else that you want to share with us as a success story?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I'm just starting a new series on my podcast where we're going to start showcasing success stories, because they are the reason that I do this. That's like totally what makes my life. And I see them on our Facebook page. I'm like, okay, I got to get these out there. One fun one that's going on right now. I walked into a studio in LA to just do some taping for social media. And I walk in and they'd gotten some stuff and they put it in the kitchen area because we need to do some kitchen stuff. But as I'm looking in the kitchen area, I am seeing like just some horrible stuff. Like there's literally a bushel of little bags of potato chips. Next to it is Capri Sun. And I mean, and then in the fridge, there's all these like really gross, like coffee mate creamers and just stuff like that. It just goes on and on and on of icky, terrible stuff, pirate's booty and just weird yuck, you know, nothing, no real food. Like this was all like stuff I would consider not food. So,
Yeah, totally.
And then there's like this little ray of sunshine of the things that they bought for me to do demos with that was like healthy, but all the rest of the stuff was just absolute crap. And I'm talking to the gal and I'm like, what is all this stuff? She goes, oh, you know, and it's two women, one who comes to all of our events and does hair and makeup and who's just amazing. And the other one does a lot of branding and video, et cetera. And so they live together and they go, oh, this is for her kids. And I go, why would you do that to your kids? Like, what are you talking about? You know, when they come over, I'm like, don't do that to them. Well, we start this whole thing. By the end of it, we've now taken the big bushel of potato chips. We put them outside with the sign that says free, take me, with the Capri Suns. We've like gotten trash bags out. We've thrown everything away. We got a big restocking list. She's now shopping. And, you know, I didn't walk in intending to do this. And I'm talking to the gal, Kristen, and Kristen is about 5'2", I think. And at her heaviest was around 260 pounds. When I met her, she was 190 and diabetic and just not healthy and kind of ignoring it, kind of just accepting that this was the way it was. And I'm like, and all I saw there, you know, if you want to lose weight, people like look at weight as some shameful thing. But they wouldn't look at high blood pressure like it's shameful or high blood sugar, but it like weights, like high blood pressure, like so they're all just symptoms of a damaged metabolism. And when you want to improve your blood pressure, you need to heal your metabolism. If you want to lose weight, you need to heal your metabolism. You don't lose weight to get healthy. You don't lower your blood pressure to get healthy. You have to get healthy to lower your blood pressure. We all know this, but for some reason we have this weird shame thing around weight as if it's some other thing. It's not, you know? So that's how I look at it. And I'm looking at it going, all right, we got to heal your metabolism. What's going on here? How do we fix this? Let's get your blood sugar more stabilized and start there. And it's funny. So we start tracking what she's eating, how she's feeling. Once a week, she does her measurements, and every day she does her weight. Well, she starts all this emotional stuff. Now, I know that the scale can be triggering, and my job is to help people understand that the scale is not a mean girlfriend. It is a biometric tool. That is all it is, giving you information. And if we start to change your diet and reduce the inflammation, drop the snacks out, getting you eating low-fi foods, dropping your sugar impact, having you eat 2 to 3 meals a day, stopping the snacking, cutting your feeding window, and nothing changes, that's because your metabolism is damaged. It's not because you're a bad person. It's got zippo to do with, anything there, right? And so I'm watching the first couple of weeks, and she is getting frustrated. I'm like, we're healing your metabolism. Please just stay with me and just go through it. So we start balancing her blood sugar. We're tracking her blood sugar, which is improving every day. We're working on her sleep, which was horrific. I go, we can never fix this with this kind of sleep that you're doing, of going to bed at 2 to 3 in the morning and getting up at like 7. This is ridiculous. So we started fixing her sleep. We got her walking after meals. We got her working out some. We got her, and all of a sudden it starts to work. Now, did it work overnight? No. Had she been like this for a day? No. She'd been like this for years. So it took a couple weeks. I'd say if you've damaged your metabolism and you've had issues with it for years, that a couple weeks is it's pretty quick, right?
It's not bad.
All of a sudden, boom, she just starts dropping. She goes from 190 down to 165. She's now all of a sudden like, can see her waist, she feels remarkably better. She realizes when she eats something that is high five for her, how crappy she feels, what it does to her. And she's just on her way. I mean, and that's the message that I think is so important to get out there, that if you are struggling with your weight, this is not because you're a bad person, right? It is because you've got, your metabolism is damaged. Maybe it's the crappy processed foods that like they sell at the store purporting to be health foods. I mean, that's the thing that drives me nuts, is you go to the store, you're trying to do the right things. If you read what they put on the labels, you could buy all the worst things for you, thinking you're doing the best thing possible, right? Or you read these blogs that tell you to eat 6 times a day and lower your fat. So you're getting duped by misinformation. You're following the wrong set of rules, and your metabolism is suffering. And then you blame yourself, but it's not your fault. You didn't know. If you knew better, you'd do better. And that is really what I'm out there to fix, is to help everybody realize that, weight is just another thing like blood sugar, blood pressure, waist measurement. That is a sign that we've got to heal your metabolism. And when we figure out which things have damaged it, is it stress? Is it sleep? Is it toxins? Is it your gut microbiome? Is it your thyroid's not working well? Is you've got sex hormones that are imbalanced? Are you insulin resistant? Maybe there's a genetic piece at play. Once we can get through that and start to heal that, you'll start to see that weight, blood pressure, and blood sugar, all these things will start to shift, and they'll work better, and you'll feel better. Now, you can start to feel better fast, but some of these things might be a lagging indicator, but they'll all change. But we got to get off this shamey, blamey thing that we have with the scale that we would never have with the blood pressure cuff, right? To give us the information that we need to make the right decisions.
I love how you have this perspective of the weight gain is a symptom and it's not part of them, and it's they shouldn't feel shame. I feel just knowing that that's the first step to lower their stress and start with the program. It's such a great start. Mm-hmm. You mentioned no snacking. Can I? Mm-hmm. Yeah, could you elaborate more?
So when we eat, your blood sugar goes up. When your blood sugar goes up, your insulin comes up to bring your blood sugar back down. That happens fairly quickly, like the blood sugar coming back down. The insulin coming back down doesn't. It takes a couple hours. You want to have low insulin, it should come up and come back down, but you want to have relatively low insulin because you need it that way for low inflammation and to be able to access stored fat for fuel. if your insulin's high, there's certain times you want it to be high. You want it to be high so that you can store it, get the blood sugar out of the blood. You need it to be able to build muscle. But if it's high all the time, you're inflamed and you'll become diabetic. So when you eat every couple of hours, you eat, your blood sugar comes up, your insulin comes up, your blood sugar comes down. But you ate another hour or two later, your insulin's never having time to come back down. In fact, it's just staying up there and bumping up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And when that happens over time, what it does is it starts to make you insulin resistant. And that will start to make you inflamed and will start to make it so that you can't use stored body fat for fuel. You're hungry all the time. You're a sugar burner, not a fat burner. That is why I do not like snacking. We need breaks in between when we eat. And in fact, we want to have a big break in between dinner and breakfast. I like to think of it as early dinner and brunch, so that we have time to rest, recover, restore, right? That we're not focused on digesting all the time, so that our body has time to do something called autophagy, where it can start to take out the cellular trash. In fact, we know that doing fasting, whether it's a 12 to 14-hour fast, a 16-hour fast, a 23-hour fast, or a multi-day fast, is one of the most therapeutic things you can do for taking out like cellular debris, for reducing your risk of cancer, for longevity, for improving insulin sensitivity. So eating all throughout the day is one of the worst things you can do for keeping that insulin up, which again makes it impossible for you to use stored fat for fuel. So this idea of snacking that came in, I remember when it came, because I was in the middle of the ruckus at the time. I was living in LA. I was working at one of the centers that was called Pritikin, that was super low fat. And if you reduce fat way down in the diet, you got to eat something. When they pulled the fat out, they put carbs in. And when you eat carbs, they bring your blood sugar up, your insulin up, your blood sugar down, and you're hungry again. And that started the whole snacking thing. I mean, like there's not even a reason to eat 3 meals a day. We should be cross-training our diet, rotating between 2 meals and 3 meals, and stopping the snacking, and maybe even 1 meal or no meal. But snacking throughout the day, eating every couple hours, is the one that's got to go.
What do you have to say about having a long duration without eating, like more than 4-6 hours, not during the night, but during the day? Does that affect your blood sugar? How can we keep it stable?
So what's making your blood sugar unstable is eating all throughout the day. Zoom, doom, 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 right? It's going to up and down, up and down, up and down. The sugar impact diet was really built to walk people into intermittent fasting and fasting. What you need to do is train for that. You shouldn't, like, if you're sitting here right now and you eat 6 meals a day, you get up in the morning, you have breakfast, then a snack, then lunch, then a snack, then dinner, and a snack before bed, and you're going to decide to start fasting tomorrow, it will be a fail. Because right now you're a sugar burner, not a fat burner. In order to be successful faster, you want to transition from being a sugar burner to a fat burner to being ultimately metabolically flexible, where you can burn sugar, fat, or ketones for fuel. That can happen quickly, but it doesn't happen overnight. And the first place it starts is by what you eat on your plate, by hitting what I call a hormonal winner, by eating clean protein that improves satiety, is the most thermic of the macronutrients, and slows down stomach emptying, keeping ghrelin, the hunger hormone, suppressed. It does that in combination with fiber. Of course, fiber, we know, helps you have a slow release of blood sugar, not a quick one. And then fat, that releases a brain chemical, a neuropeptide to the brain, to tell your brain that you are full. So you want to first really make sure you're eating protein, fiber from non-starchy vegetables, a little bit of slow, low impact carbs, and fat, so that you have that great balanced blood sugar. But then you should be able to go, that's the big test. Can I go 4 to 6 hours? Can I keep going? And once you do that, and once you're able to access stored fat for fuel, you'll be able to go longer and longer without needing to eat. And to also reframe that a little bit of hunger, first of all, make sure you're drinking. You're seeing me like here, I've got my iced green tea right here. Make sure that you're drinking all throughout the day. You've heard it that quite often we're not hungry, we're thirsty, and that is definitely true. And even mild dehydration, like 1%, can raise cortisol and lower metabolism. In fact, one of the things that can help keep your metabolic rate up throughout the day is drinking lots of fluids, plus it's good for detoxification. But eating to keep your blood sugar stable isn't. It's actually making it less stable because it's coming up and down and up and down and up and down. And people say, oh, I'm eating to keep my blood sugar stable. No, you're keeping your blood sugar up. Every time you eat, it's bumping it up again.
Makes a lot of sense. So I travel all the time. How can I stay healthy during my trip, in airports and airplanes, and during my trip? Like, I go to restaurants and at the hotel.
Mm-hmm. Number one, you want to keep emergency food with you. And things that I like, there's Paleo Valley has these grass-fed beef sticks. So that's one. Nuts are another one. I have my own bars. I have keto bars and bone broth bars and fiber bars. So I travel with bars, nuts, and those because, you just don't know. And it was funny. I just was on a plane for the first time. Usually everything, I come out of Tampa, Florida, and nothing's direct anywhere right now. It was before the pandemic, and it was like, boom, if you're going over 2 hours, you got a layover. And so I wasn't worried about having food on the plane. Then all of a sudden I'm on a flight and it's 6 hours. And it's the first time I'd eaten airplane food because I didn't think. I was like, oh my gosh, I know better than this. And bam, I got a stomach ache. Even though I picked out everything, ate gluten-free, dairy-free, didn't work. So I'd say always bring your food with you. In the restaurants, learn how to make the right choices, which I always look for what kind of soups they have, what's gluten-free, dairy-free. And it's, the good news is now that most places do accommodate for that. You can always get salads, you can always get clean vegetables, you can always get like plain protein. So I'm always looking at what are the clean things that I can get and adjusting accordingly. And it's also a great time to do some intermittent fasting, right? So that's the other easy thing. It's like, we've got a big trip to Dubai in the Maldives, and I'm just planning a lot of that to be fasting and to help reset my chronological clock that way.
And what I love that you mentioned protein bars. I would, if you could recommend the ones you like.
It's funny right now. I have 3. We had 6 different ones, and then during the pandemic, like protein bars were the worst business to be in because people stopped eating them. They just started eating chips and cookies and stopped eating protein bars because they weren't traveling. It's just like they stopped listening to podcasts. They stopped eating protein bars. And so we decided to keep 3 of ours. I have a vegan keto bar. I have a bone broth collagen bar, and I have a high fiber bar. So I have my 3 bars. And right now I am going through the process to decide what other bars I want to create. And it's going to take us probably 8 to 12 months to get this done. But the first thing I did was go and look in the industry and try all the different bars out there that were gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, peanut-free, low sugar, no artificial. And by the way, like trying to find that, first of all, I tasted some of the worst things I've ever tasted. I'm like, how can anyone, these are awful, like awful. I can tell you the ones I have are delicious. So, those are, I can't recommend any other bars at this point, but the ones that I make, because having gone through this taste testing thing that I just went through, it was like a rotten experience. And it's funny. I just gave them to my kind of partner in creating these bars, and he's like, these are the worst things ever. And I go, I know, but that was all I could find. It's like, if it fit the parameters, it just, bleh. So stay tuned. Next year, 2023 will be a good year for more, but right now I have those 3, and those are what I travel with and use. And that's it. The only other bar that I will use, but it's got, 5 grams of sugar and it doesn't have the protein, is I will use Kind bars if I'm stuck and I'm at a Starbucks. I'm like, okay, that is one that I can do. So I will do that.
I didn't know you had bars. I would love to try them, especially that you said they're tasty and still have clean ingredients.
They are. It's so hard to do. Let me tell you, it is so hard to make clean bars with good ingredients. And I mean, I see it out there when I look at bars online. It's like, and you can tell, first of all, by the price, because healthy food costs more in this situation. Like, not always, let's face it, most of what's expensive are all these like dirty processed food. I call my bar a clean processed food. Things like wild rice and lentils and berries are not not where you're spending your money. But to get a good, clean bar with healthy ingredients that are clean is not going to be $1. It's just not. Like I was looking at, someone was recommending a bar on my Facebook page, and I go, our ingredients cost more than that bar, than that bar retails for,
So I think on a closing note, what would you like to tell the audience?
Well, I just threw a ton of information out here. And so my biggest goal is never to overwhelm. When I wrote the Virgin Diet, it was, let's just start with one thing, because when you have all these things, then you end up with nothing. So the simplest place to start with all of this is the Virgin Diet. That's the simplest thing. Now I can even take it a step farther. One of the things that I do every day is I break my fast with what I call a loaded smoothie. And I talked about that, having clean protein. I use an unsweetened nut milk. I add a little avocado or chia or flax, a little extra fiber, and some berries. Right now, I've been using a little bit of a slightly green banana frozen. And I think that's another one that you can do that's just an easy first step in. And so either one of those things, like either start with the Virgin Diet or start with just a loaded smoothie every single day. I do have a 50 recipe smoothie guide at jjvirgin.com/smoothie, easy. So that pick one and start, because it doesn't start without that commitment to yourself.
That's a great advice. I remember when I read the book, you mentioned that even without starting the diet, putting your patients on just the smoothie, they started dropping pounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if you think about it, there's this thing called the second meal phenomenon, meaning what you eat in the morning matters a lot. And I call it setting the metabolic tone for the day. And so I like people to get up in the morning, meditate, do a little fasted high intensity interval training, and then have their morning loaded smoothie. That's like my favorite thing to see people do. And it's easy to do, and it's just a great routine. And you can put so much great stuff into this smoothie that's going to have the protein, healthy fat, and fiber that you need for that great blood sugar balance. If you start the morning the way most people do, with dessert, with that muffin that, let's face it, is a cupcake without icing, and that mocha latte, so if you start that way, now you've started a blood sugar problem that you will never escape during the day, because it's going to hit you for the next one.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you so much, JJ, for the interview.
You are so welcome. My pleasure.